Derek and Angela, what is it like being in this space? What does this space mean to you?
For me personally, this is coming home. This is coming home. This is where it all began so many years ago.
Yeah. Take us back to walking into this space that day.
It was really hard. I have to admit, when you are in need of food, going to the food bank through the front door isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do. It took a few attempts for me to do it, but when I got through the door, the love and support that was on the other side made it all worthwhile.
The need to come into this space was caused by you having an illness that caused you not to be able to work.
That's
Tell
correct.
us a little bit about that.
Yeah, in 2009, I got sick. By 2011, I had exhausted our sick benefits, long-term disability, and I had to do something. I'd gone back to work, but the bills still piled up. Mortgage payments needed to be made. And I went to the kitchen one night, and my wife just had tears down her eyes, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "There's no food." And we'd always been supporters of the Salvation Army. I knew the food bank was only a few blocks away, but I still couldn't face going in to ask for help. So I sent a letter to the Public Relations Office and asked them for support. So what they did is they contacted the food bank here in Dundas, and I received a call from the staff saying, "Come in right away for food and to register the kids for Christmas." So that's how it started.
Angela, what was it like for you as you're watching your husband suffer through this illness and having to feed 6 children, plus yourself?
Yeah, I think it was really hard. It was hard to walk through it in a community you'd grown up in because you didn't want people to know. And you often heard people talk negatively about people who were using the food bank. And so you almost had this hidden secret from everybody around you. And you hoped that when it was time to come here for your monthly food hamper, that nobody would see you.
Talk about that, just the stigma. I think that's a great point. The stigma that's surrounded around people who need extra help and need to reach out to their community.
For sure. We often have an image in our mind of what that person looks like, and we neglect to acknowledge that circumstances can land any one of us here at any given time. And so it's important when we think about people who need to reach out to the services to acknowledge that any one of us could be in their shoes at any given time.
Yeah. And so those happen to be the shoes that you had to walk with for a while. When you came into this space to pick up your hamper and to register the kids for Christmas, you talked about the feeling, Derek, of just the warmth of the people here. How important was that, just to feel that you were accepted and not judged?
Yeah, there was definitely no judgment, and it was all acceptance and love. I couldn't imagine going into a place and not receiving that on the other end. And we've actually remained friends and now colleagues of the same people that we once received food from. So it's hard to put into words sometimes when people show you so much love and kindness when you desperately need it. Yeah, it's incredible.
Describe that Christmas, Angela. Being able to even make that Christmas possible with the help of this space.
It definitely was emotional to see what people were so willing to provide to our family, and to watch our children be able to open those things on Christmas morning and to know that someone had loved somebody enough who they'd never met to be able to provide those things. And to see the smiles on the children's faces as they open those things. Yeah, there's an emotional peace that was filled in our lives that went far beyond the physical needs that were provided through the services here.
Yeah. to know that you were loved by your community.
Yeah.
Yeah. Salvation Army has always kind of played a role in your lives.
It has.
You came to know the Lord, Derek, through
Yeah.
going to a breakfast and hearing.
I did, actually. A colleague of mine at the time in Toronto had invited me to a prayer breakfast in 1999, and I didn't really want to go. And it turns out that when I did go, the fellow that was speaking at the time was Al Speed, who happened to be the former fire chief of the city of Toronto. And he put a call forward to anybody who wanted to accept the Lord as their Savior. And I stood up, tears running down my face, and I went forward. And I asked my colleague at the time, what denomination is this guy with? And they said he's a Salvationist. So yeah, the Salvation Army has played a big role in our lives.
We fast forward, you receive help from the Salvation
Yes.
Army that tugged something at your heart.
It did.
And really then started thinking that maybe there was a way that you could also give back,
Yeah.
and started volunteering.
We did, yeah. Once we got back on our feet, we wanted to give back. So we would assist with food drives here in town. We would also assist at Ticats games with public relations, handing out game day lineups. We made sure the kids came with us at Christmas time on the kettles, and we just felt that that's what we were being called to do, to give back. Yeah.
And eventually, God started really tugging on your hearts to get involved in ministry. And obviously, we see you in your uniforms.
Yes.
Tell us about what God did and how He was able to make that happen.
Yeah, it's crazy what God can do in your lives. So after we became clients of the Salvation Army, we saw a poster in the food bank lobby saying that the local Core Meadowlands was hosting a breakfast with Santa. So we thought, that sounds something nice. We'll take the kids there. And we loved it. We came back the following year as well, and God had started stirring something in our lives, a passion for helping those less fortunate. And the Salvation Army was top of our list for a particular denomination that does that. So that played a big role, but it was all God too, just slowly moving in our lives and taking us to this point in ministry. So we were welcomed again with open arms and loved that Christmas, and we started attending the Salvation Army.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you're going to be pastors. You're
Right.
of a community. And tell me, just Angela, how that happened. How, it goes from one thing to serve your community and volunteer and do, a few extra things, but then to feel the calling of becoming pastors is
Yeah.
a whole other level, especially with 6
Absolutely.
kids.
Absolutely. And I think, so Derek and I both eventually began to work for the same community and family services where we received services through. And so we really felt at that point that this was God's plan for our lives. And I think basically when we just started to get comfortable in those roles, God started stirring in our hearts again. And so we both felt an individual call to full-time ministry. And when we were able to vocalize that to one another and begin to explore what that looked like, we definitely were affirmed in many ways that this was God's will for us as a family. And so we journeyed to Winnipeg and underwent 2 years of training at the Salvation Army's College for Officer Training. And at the end of June, we're appointed to Goderich, Ontario, as the Corps officers there in that community.
Wow. Do you ever look back at just this journey that God has taken you on? And not to say that He wanted you to be in need, but wondering about the journey He has us on and the way that He highlights things for us so that we can take that next step in our journey. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely. I think His guiding is always gentle and very patient. So if God had reached down at that point of while we were receiving services and said, this is what I want you to do, we wouldn't have been so obedient in our response. So it was this gentle journey of guiding us and taking those steps that then when He placed that call on our hearts, we were able to respond and follow.
Wow.
And it's opened so many doors for us too. I mean, when you're serving a client who's in desperate need of food or shelter, or just somebody to talk to, when they say you don't understand, it gives us a door to open and go through that says, yes, we do. We've been there. And it kind of throws them back that God was with them in their time of need, and he'll be with us in our time of need as well. And we try to communicate that message to the people that we serve. You know, this is just a particular time in your life. It doesn't mean it's always going to be this way. And we try to explain to them where we've been and where God has brought us to.
Thank you so much, Derek and Angela, for your story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope this encourages you at home. Maybe you're going through a hard time during the season. Maybe, you know, you just like the Kerrs, maybe have opened up your cupboards or your fridge and there isn't much there. Be encouraged that God is with you. And I know that can sometimes sound very hollow, because right now you just need food and you need provision. But as we've heard in this story and in so many stories on 100 Huntley Street, God is faithful to provide. And so I hope you are encouraged by that today. Call our prayer lines. They would love to pray with you, encourage you, even connect you with a church, maybe a community that could help you in your time of need today.